Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the Moms Talk Sex podcast with me, Mor Yelvington, your host. I'm so excited that you're here to talk sex with me today. And my beautiful guest is Elvira. Hey, Elvira.
Hi. Yes, you pronounced my name right.
Yes,
Yay.
I did it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yes.
Well, I'm so happy and I'm excited that you're here because I know that what you have to share is going to change some of our listeners' worlds. So before we jump in, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do in the world?
Yeah, so my name's Elvira DiBrigit, and I am a mother of three. My oldest is 30 now, and my youngest is 16. And I have been a teacher most of my life, and I'm I'm 54 now, and I'm in the last 10 years I've been coaching homeschoolers because that's been a big part of my life. I homeschooled my children at different times in their education. And and then in the last like 5 years, I've really, you know, got realized how much the relationships are so much more important than the academics. And so I've really done a switch and been coaching more around the parent-child relationships and then mentoring teens. I've been doing girl circles for a long time, and that developed into what I do now. I kind of became known as the puberty doula because I help like parents prepare for the changes that their children will be going through and how to talk to them about sex and everything else. So that's a little introduction. Yeah.
I love that. And I think this is so important. Like, I love that you do this. And I know it's probably pretty controversial in some places because so many of the women I interview, they come from a place where you don't talk about sex ever.
Mm.
Sex is disgusting, but you're supposed to get married and have children at some point, but sex is disgusting. And so I remember, talking to one of my nieces, and she is in her 20s now, but I was asking her, like, did anybody ever talk to you about like masturbation, about discovering your body? Like, what does that look like? And she was like, ew, like, don't talk to me about these things. And I was thinking, this is something that's probably so needed, but it has to be done, I think, in a very special way. So it seems like I would love to hear more about what it is that you do in that way.
Yeah, well, you point to some really important things. Like a lot of people feel like, oh, well, there's sex education in school, and then I can just, cover a little bit more at home, or they don't think too much about it and it just comes up spontaneously and they don't know what to say. So I really like to work to help parents think about it ahead of time and prepare. And then also it's yeah, just overcoming our own conditioning, like you said. And that's why I like to work privately with people instead of through the schools and organizations, because then I can really tailor it to their individual needs.
So what would you
Mhm.
say is the right age? I don't know, all the quotes, but what is a good age to start talking to your kids about sex?
I mean, all the way from when they're very little, there's just different ways to talk about it, and you don't have to give too many details when they're really young, but like, even 3 and 4, like, I don't know, a lot of times, well, I raised my kids on farms, so a lot of times it, was obvious in that way, like seeing other animals mating or, collecting eggs and talking about them. Um, so those are some of the ways. And I can also say that from my experience, like my mom in like the 70s, she was maybe a little too liberal in how she talked about it with me. And so I can see that side too. Um, and so there is a fine balance, definitely, in
So what
how
does
we
it
talk
look
to our
like?
kids.
Because normally we don't have people talk about the other side of it. So I'm curious
Mm.
about this. Like, I always get the sex is bad, sex is this, but what does the over liberalized look like?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that, there's definitely some karma that I came into my life here with a big purpose to teach about this. And so even from a really young age, I was very sexual and sexually interested in my body and and my mom, was just trying to keep it positive. So she was always like, oh yeah, masturbation is a good thing to, help you feel good. Um, sex, doing it with someone is a wonderful thing. It's, she did say like it's when people, two people love each other and it's a special thing. It can be a healing thing. But yeah, just somehow, I think because I was too young when she was telling me that is, that it just, yeah, it was just a little bit too much.
Got it. Yeah, I guess that could be like anything that's too much is not good, right? It means that maybe we're covering or it's overcompensating on something we're missing, maybe, you know?
Yeah, like I feel like it's good to balance it out with, yes, it's a wonderful, pleasurable thing that connects people, but also in that connection that you have with that person is a big responsibility, and there's like shared energy that then you become very vulnerable. And so like she didn't talk about those details as much
Yeah,
until I got older.
yeah, I understand. So when you work with your clients now, you work with the teenagers or you work with the parents?
A little bit of both. Yes, I love to work with both separately.
Yeah.
Um, but oftentimes it's not that way. Oftentimes I like have circles for girls and then I have different, offerings for parents,
So what are
classes.
the things that girls these days, what are they dealing with? Like what's coming up for them when it comes to this kind of stuff?
Mm. There's such a wide variety of background, but yeah, there's a lot of like kind of bravado of like, oh, sexuality is like, oh yeah, I know about that. And, I can do these things like oral sex or anal sex, or like like it's all cool or whatever. There's some of that. Some people are in that, especially if they're in like city schools, I feel like. Um, but then there's also a lot of kids who are really protected
Yeah.
and don't have any experience about that. And um, I don't know. But yeah, like these days with social media and even just reading like comments on social media, I feel like they get exposed to weird, weird
Yeah.
things.
There's a lot of exposure. So how and that's the other thing, like how do you I'm sure like this probably comes to your field a lot. Like how do you deal with the things that they are seeing or exposed to? Like what kind of tools can you give parents to deal with this kind of stuff?
Well, the tools for parents, I mean, because for the girls, it's like we just talk about them and I will be a mentor and advise them of, what's, it's not really like that in real relationships and stuff like that. But with parents, it really is about starting early and young in normalizing talking about these things and talking about them, you know, fairly regularly, not just the one big talk, when you
Right.
think they need it. And there's some great resources that I like to share with parents. Um, and like even Planned Parenthood has some really good, helpful like tips on how to talk about sex um, and body changes. It's not just sex, but it's like puberty and everything that's happening and changing with our kids. One really good tip is to always ask them, like if they come to you with a question, it's really good to just in a non-judgmental way ask like say like, oh yeah, that's a great question, why are you bringing it up, or how did that come up, why did you think of that, because that will lead you into what's really going on with them. Where did they maybe hear this some information or yeah.
Right. I like that a lot.
Mm.
That's really good. And so, what would you say the number one thing that people come to you to work to help them with?
Mm. Um, it's mostly like the how to start bringing up these things and how a lot of it is about communication, just like there's children are starting to turn away from their parents in terms of not wanting to talk as much. I just saw this great post recently that said, it's this terrible irony of parenting that just when we are ready to share important things with our kids, they suddenly are not wanting to talk to us. It was, better written than that, but it's true. And I've heard that even biologically, there might be something where teenagers, are meant to turn away from their parents at a certain point. I don't know if that's really true. Some mammals do that and some mammals don't, right?
Mm,
Like separating from the group and forming their own. But it does seem statistically to happen a lot with humans, with our teens. And I think some of it is cultural for sure. So, in that regard, that's why I'm also working as a mentor because, yeah, sometimes it's just a lot better to have someone else, another trusted adult, someone who's not involved in the day-to-day life of like, can you do the dishes?
right.
But yeah, you asked like what do people come with me for? So one of is like communication strategies and how to have good communication with your teen in general. And then the other one is what to expect in the changes that they go through, like all the body changes and brain development changes, and then preparing for that, how to um, yeah, how to just bring up these different things or how to help your teen with their own body changes or mental states. Yeah.
I like it. So, if our listeners want to know more about you and what you do and how they can work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so right now on Instagram, it's just at Puberty Doula. And I'm where else? I'm on LinkedIn, but in my website is also thepubertydoula.com. I'm going through a rebranding right now, but I'll still have a forwarding link.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I really appreciate you. And thank
Yeah.
you, women that are listening. Thank you for tuning in. I hope this was eye-opening for you on ways to talk to your children about these interesting topics. And I hope that you gain some knowledge and some experience and some confidence in approaching this. And if you need more of that, then obviously reach to Elvira. So I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week, and we'll tune in with you next week. Bye.